feel very fancy in this outfit right now, so shout out to me for putting a lot of effort into what I'm wearing in my videos. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you're here today. I'm really excited to be making this video today because we're going to be talking about why it is hard to be a Christian, why it's hard to follow Jesus, but at the same time, why it is all so worth it. So first, let me just say that in this video, I'm not going to really touch on persecution. I know that there are so many places in this world where being a Christian just automatically brings very harsh persecution. And I'm not necessarily talking about living for Jesus in the sense that being persecuted is the hard part, although I do really believe that that is an extremely difficult thing to deal with. However, in today's video, I'm really going to get into why it's hard to follow Christ, like personally in our lives and just like how we live, because Jesus calls us to a life that is very different from what the world teaches and from what culture, purports and everything like that. So I'm going to touch on that today. And the reason that I wanted to is because I think that we need to be able to get some encouragement. We need to get our minds straight back on to what Jesus wants us to do, how he wants us to live, and how it's hard, but it is worth it. So let's get started with our theme verse today. It's going to be in Luke chapter 14, verses 26 and 27, and this is what it says. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. So we see here very clearly that Jesus gives us a very strict type of life that we should be living. He's saying, like, if you don't hate your mom and your dad, if you don't hate your wife and your children, your brothers and sisters, or even your own self in your own life, then you cannot follow him. And he says that we need to pick up our cross and follow him, deny ourselves. And the thing is, that is extremely hard to do. And Jesus is not saying that we need to hate everyone, but what he's really saying is that ultimately, if we want to follow him, then we have to put him above everything. And the thing is, that is so hard to do, especially in this life when it's hard. We are constantly surrounded by temptation, constantly surrounded by outside influences that are not of Christ. And so living for him is extremely difficult because we are constantly going against what our flesh, what our human nature is telling us to do. I think about Paul and how he kind of talks about his plight of the thing that I want to do, I don't do. And the thing that I don't want to do, I do. And it's just like the human internal struggle that we deal with as followers of Christ of doing things that we don't want to and then not doing things that we want to. And it's just like the struggle within us. But it's amazing because Jesus gives us himself. He shares himself with us. He gives us his word. He gives us his life, the Holy Spirit. And we know that even though it's hard to live for him because we look at sin a different way now, we don't welcome it. Now we shun it and we have to fight against it. It's difficult to do, but he is with us and he helps us. And I just want to really share like the standard that the Lord has for us. And it's important to keep this in mind because as Christians, we are called to be set apart. We're called to be different. We're called to share the testimony and the image of Christ with those around us. And so I want to share with you in 1 Peter, it says here, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in your conduct. Because it is written, be holy for I am holy. Peter is saying this to us. He's saying we need to be holy because Christ is holy. How we live is going to affect how people view Christ. If you say that you love Jesus, but you're living a life that does not reflect that at all, you're going to cause confusion and stumbling for so many people. And so it's so important to live for Christ, to be holy, but it is so hard to do. Trust me, we're going to make mistakes, but it's so amazing that Christ is with us. And something that we really need to meditate on is actually a little bit further in this section. And it says, knowing that you were not redeemed with corruptible things like silver or gold from your aimless conduct received by tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. We can trust and meditate on the fact that Christ has saved us by his blood. He has saved us through his immense and gory and beautiful sacrifice that he gave us on the cross. And if we focus on that, if we remember what Christ has done for us, then we know that he has never called us to do anything that he hasn't done himself. He gave up everything for us. And so in him asking us to do that, it's really like, we need to. And the thing that I really want to speak is that giving up what we think is important, our sin, or our relationship that is causing us to walk away from the Lord, or our family, or our job, these things that are pulling us farther from the Lord, when we give those up, it's like so hard because we want to keep them and we find security and our hope in them, but it's a false security and a false hope. And not until we surrender to Christ, not until we realize like I need to give this up, and not until we submit to Him, do we see the glory and the blessing of that. Because obedience and holiness produces blessings that only obedience and holiness can produce. And so that's what I wanted to share with you in this video today. Keep going strong. It's a hard fight. It's hard to be holy. It's hard to stand out. It's hard to follow Christ because we're struggling all the time. But I want to end off with just this real quick verse, John 16:33. It says, "These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." If your tribulation is something physical, if your tribulation is something spiritual, whatever it is, Christ has overcome it, and He will help you to overcome. So as we strive to live holy, as we strive to live with Him, despite all the hardness, despite all the pressure, despite all the temptation, we know that He has overcome and we can trust in Him. And we have the Holy Spirit inside of us, so we've got the power. We can give Him glory despite everything. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. I hope that you're encouraged. Stay tuned for next week's video, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.